The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Greg Malone. I'm your host for Human Rights and Justice for All. You're listening on W4CY.com radio, and I enjoy having you on this morning. This morning I have a young man named Evan Jennings on with me. This morning we're going to be talking about several topics. They include the devaluing of marriage, the silent holocaust of abortion, the liberal biased media, that one ought to be fun, evolution in the public schools, complacency of many Christians, that's one of my favorite topics, destruction of gender roles, and misconstrual of homosexuality by Christians and non-Christians. So what I'd like to do is just start out giving my normal show intro. And what I'd like to say is you can contact me by Human Rights and Justice for All at gmail.com, Human Rights and Justice for All at gmail.com, or you can get me on Twitter at Rights Justice, the @ sign, and then Rights and Justice are in capital letters. I want to let you know that I will choose topics for the show that I deem important to us individually and to our society. The highest goal of my show is love, the love of God first, and the love of my fellow man second. The basis of all my reasoning is that truth is absolute. When something is true, nothing can be said or done that can change that truth. Human rights are given to us by God. They are mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So at this time, I'd like to ask Evan to give us a little bit of his bio, his upbringing, some of the way he formed his beliefs. So I'll turn it over to Evan.
Yeah, hi. So just kind of starting at the beginning as far as my upbringing, I was born into a Christian family in rural California. Soon after that, we moved to very rural northern New York here. And I wasn't raised in any particular denomination. It was always just kind of a Christ-following setting in my home and in my church. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, a very agricultural sort of community for the most part of my life. And parents who are conservative and who has trained me in that. And then I've had the opportunity to attend different sessions at a place called Summit Ministries, the president of which is Jeff Myers. Some of you might have heard of Jeff Myers. And Summit Ministries has really helped me shape exactly what I believe, and it's taught me the critical thinking kind of analytical process that has brought me to some internal consensus on many of the issues we'll be talking about today.
Great. That's awesome. Now, you were homeschooled, right?
I was homeschooled. Yeah, I was homeschooled all of my growing up years. The only time I wasn't homeschooled was when I was a senior in high school. I attended classes at a community college as opposed to staying home. That was last year in the spring semester this year. But for most of my life, I have been homeschooled.
And so you just checked in. Is it to Clarkson?
Yep, Clarkson University up here in Potsdam, New York. I actually got here Friday the 23rd, so that was only 4 days ago, I believe. I think so. And I just started classes yesterday, and so far I really like Clarkson University.
Great. That's awesome. It's got to be an exciting time in your life, and I'm just going to give out the phone number if people would like to call in today. The number to call in on is 561-623-9429. That number again is 561-623-9429. If you want to ask Evan a question, or if you want to ask me a question, or just to make a statement in general, you can do that. And we welcome your calls. Now let's move into the subject of the devaluing of marriage. What do you see with regard to this, Evan, being that you're a young person? I'd like to get your take on this, the devaluing of marriage.
Right. Well, especially because I'm a young person, and many of my peers are not married yet, and have I've talked about that with many people. And especially in my age group, marriage is basically considered obsolete nowadays. It's seen as an unnecessary level of commitment to someone else, and almost kind of a life sentence. Some people would think of it as. Although obviously divorce is sadly an option in our society and attainable pretty easily. But yeah, I think for the most part, especially in my peer group, marriage is basically considered just obsolete.
Now, it's interesting that you said that it's kind of a life sentence. Is it the fear of commitment, for just the long-term fear of commitment?
I think it's partially that fear of commitment, and then to probably even a greater extent, people the idea of monogamy and the idea of a one life partner is definitely a daunting thing for anyone, but I think for Christians it's a high calling, and it's definitely blessed by God, and people are definitely losing sight of that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Basically, people want their cake and want to eat it too. In today's society, they want to have all the pleasures of a promiscuous lifestyle, and I would like to say that those pleasures of a promiscuous lifestyle might be pleasurable for a moment, but in the light of eternity, that won't do, because the Bible says that we should be married, we should be given in marriage. Just one verse I'd like to point out is in 1 Timothy chapter 4. It says, "In the last days people will give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, forbidding to marry and abstaining from meats." So, this last day time, I believe we're living in, where people are telling other people, don't marry, telling parents, don't give your children in marriage. That is a doctrine of devils, and I believe it is clearly such, and I state it boldly. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Oh, do you have something else? Sorry.
I was gonna read a verse out of Hebrews, if you wouldn't mind. Just kind of going along with that. Yeah, Hebrews 13:4 says, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. And I think I have many verses here in case we want to hit on those a little bit later. But I think especially for Christians, the Bible makes it very, very clear how marriage is to be kept sacred.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you that needs to be happening. People, if you're out there listening today, you're not married, you're just living with someone year after year after year. I have relatives in the same situation. The marriage relationship and the commitment that you have towards each other is very key to your lifelong happiness, and to just your living together as one. Once you come together with another person sexually, you are one with them, and that's very clear. In fact, the Bible says that if you give yourself to a prostitute, you become one flesh with them. And I'm not saying your partner's a prostitute, but I'm just saying that if you come together with someone else sexually, that you have made yourself one with that person. It gets really confusing when you get up to about the 30th person. And that's not the way that God wanted it to be. So I just, want to point that out, that we really need to follow the Word and follow the commands of the Lord, and we will be blessed for it. Let's move on to the silent holocaust of abortion. What do you have to say on that, Evan?
You know what, Greg, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and one reason is, and it's a little humorous, is because it is one of the easiest, even with my peers, it's one of the easiest topics to really to talk about and to support my side on, because it is kind of a no-brainer when you're honest with yourself. But I'll just start right in. I think a lot of people today, people I know included in that, have tried to turn this issue into a women's rights issue. My body, my choice, that whole thing. And I think that it's important to note right off the bat that if the unborn are not human, then this is completely a women's rights issue, and that's what should be discussed here. But as I believe, and as many other Christians believe, the unborn are human, and for that reason, it is not a women's rights issue, because the child itself has rights as a human being. And I think everyone would agree with that. But let's just start in with a few different cases. And people, when I'm talking to people about this, they'll say, what if a woman is raped and then is impregnated by the rapist? Is it appropriate to make that woman carry the child for 9 months? Or, what if a baby is going to be born into a family that can't support it financially? And what I would say to people who have, those outlier cases like that, which really do kind of annoy me when they're brought up, what I would say is, would you kill a 2-year-old that's already been, obviously been born and been alive for 2 years on Earth outside of the womb? Would you kill a 2-year-old who is the product of rape, or would you kill a 2-year-old that is living in a poor family situation? And any rational human being would say, well, of course not. I wouldn't kill that 2-year-old. You ask them why? Well, because they're human. I'm not going to kill them. And that right there, you can kind of show people that they're, by bringing up a rape case like that, they are inherently assuming that the unborn are not human. Because, to suggest that it's appropriate to kill someone to save their mother some emotional heartache is ridiculous if you do believe, in fact, that child is human. So the underlying issue that needs to be addressed here is not a women's rights issue, and it's not, talking about those outlier cases that some people like to bring up. The underlying issue is, are the unborn human? What does science say about this? What does philosophy say about this? And is there a right answer to that question? And I believe there is definitely a right answer to that question. How in depth would you like me to get on this?
Yeah, I mean, let's go deep, dude.
Okay. Well, as I see it, there are 4 main differences between anyone listening to this show right now and to an unborn child who is still in the womb, and I'm just going to go through those systematically here. The first main difference is the size of the individual. I'm much larger than an unborn child, but I'm also much larger than my little, 6-year-old sister. Does this difference in weight or mass change my value compared to my little sister? Of course not. So, based, on the basis of size, no one's going to contend that the unborn are less valuable because they're smaller. So that's the first, obvious difference between anyone listening and an unborn child, is size, and definitely not a reason to postulate that they're of any less value as a human being. Number 2, difference here is the level of development, whether it's bone structure, whether it's mental development, analytical skills, reflexes, muscle development. There are obviously many differences in the level of development between me and or anyone else listening and an unborn child. And I personally believe this is no reason to postulate that the unborn are of any less value. Again, with my little sister, who's only 6 years old, I'm much more developed mentally and physically than she is, and no one would ever go so far as to say that I'm more valuable because of this higher level of development. And I see no reason to make any difference for an unborn child. The third way that we are, us that have been born, are different than the unborn are because of our environment. The womb is an environment that is alien to most of us. We all spent 9 months there, but I don't think anyone remembers their time in the womb. So it is an environment that might be shrouded in a little bit of mystery, and because of that, some people have the audacity to express that they think that that's a good enough reason to devalue that unborn child. But there are many different levels, differences in environment for people who are part of the world outside of the womb. And, there's people live in big houses, people live in small houses, people live in third world countries, people live in very wealthy communities. Level of, a type of someone's environment